Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to day 3 of the Almond Conference here in Sacramento. Great to see all of you. Hope you had a good morning and a late night last night. So saw some sleepy eyes out there this morning. Anyhow, so great to be in person and celebrate this industry, and thanks for all the great presentations that we've been able to enjoy and a lot of camaraderie. Before we get into our keynote speech today, just wanted to thank Farm Credit for sponsoring this lunch today. So a round of applause, please, for Farm Credit. And then, once again, the big shout out to the 270 exhibitors that are downstairs. Hope you've had a chance to spend a lot of time there. And the 40 sponsors that we have this year. Quickly, again, our medal sponsors who contribute so generously financially, but also our collaborators throughout the industry during the rest of the year and every year. Platinum, Yara North America; Gold, Burrell; Silver, Tomra Food; Emerald, Cusify; Titanium, Bear Crop Science; Bronze, AC Horn Manufacturing; Copper, Sataki; Nickel, P2G Progressive Genetics; Steel, Miller Chemical and Fertilizer; and Cobalt, the Ag Center. So thank you, and a round of applause, please, for all of our medal sponsors. So we're going to take you on a little journey today, a lifetime journey, basically, of one of our industry members, who many of you probably know. I did not know this gentleman until I went to Vietnam a couple of years ago, and I was then accompanying USDA Undersecretary Ted McKinney on a trade mission, my first visit to that country. And I met with a lot of Vietnamese companies, and when they knew we were in the almond business, I kept hearing the name Dan On. And I said, how do you spell that? Dan On.
On and off.
And he's basically, in Vietnam, I would say nothing short of revered in his birth country. So I decided I'd learn more about this guy upon my return, and of course went on the internet and saw a few pictures and learned a little bit there, and then phone conversations with other industry members. And I offered up the idea to have Dan be a keynote speaker this year, as somebody who's had just this amazing journey in life, and I thought he would have a lot to share with us today. So before we get started, a little bit of history. In 1989, Dan started Dandy Foods and is now the global CEO of that group. They're an importer, manufacturer, distributor of almonds, cashews, and other tree nuts, nut butters, dried fruits, snack foods, and spices from around the world, with approximately 1,000 employees in Canada, Vietnam, Thailand, United States, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and China, with headquarters in Richmond, British Columbia, just outside of Vancouver. And we'll delve into his life story, but really, to me, it represents one of perseverance, overcoming adversity, and making his way in the nut world with deep humility, a mission to help others live healthier lives, and a huge heart for humanity. So please join me in welcoming Dan On, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, thank you, Richard, for the opportunity.
Great to have you here. If he falls asleep during his talk, he just got back from Vietnam, so he's still
15 hours long flight.
still suffering with a bit of jet lag. But anyhow, we're sort of going to go through the different stages of Dan's life, and one started with his youth back in Saigon, now Ho Chi Minh City, where he grew up. And as I was mentioning before, I'm from LA, but also because of the time of my birth, grew up during the Vietnam War, as did Dan. And so he went through a lot of adversity as a family, as a young man, and then his journey ultimately to Canada. So we're going to, with his permission, take you through that story and travel with you during those early years of your life.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, thank you for the opportunity for me to unfold my true story, which is behind me for 42 years. I remember when I was 9 years old, and I got caught in the Civil War in Vietnam. And one morning, my father just bundle up with clothes in the side, said, "This is your bulletproof shield," and start running on the street. And when I was running out, and I saw an American GI on a Jeep, and with a machine gun, bum, 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 bum. And I saw lots of, we call VC, falling down the street. I was only 9 years old. Living in the country in a war zone is dangerous every day. And time go by, 1975, and the fall of Saigon, and make life worse for us. Because my father, once upon a time, he worked for the American services. And they often bring home some peanut butter and jam and jelly.
I said no almond butter. You said no.
No almond butter, but there's worse, Van Housen hot chocolate almonds. So I ate the chocolate. You know what? I spit the almonds. Do you know what it is? And my father, he was one of the 2 or 3 men the American trained, so he can break the Morse code. So you know what? After he translated the message, I was wearing a student uniform, and he said to me, "You deliver it."
So you'd run through the streets of Saigon with a translated, encoded
my
message
pocket, yeah.
that he'd translated.
I didn't know I was a spy. I could have get shot and killed. But my father said, well, you're safe, because nobody's going to harm a student. In 1975, when it came, my father said, well, I'm not going to run this country. We're ethnic Chinese. We can survive the last regime. We survive with the communists, because China's under communists. So my father decided to stay behind. And I was 15. I said, Dad, I think I will burn your American identity. My father later on thanks me a lot. He said, without me burning his identity, he would go to labor camp for 10 years or longer.
Or worse. Yeah.
But because I burned all his identity, and the American abandoned us, because we have nothing to prove. So 1978, 79, when the Chinese ethnic was asked to leave the country, my family can only afford to have 1 ticket and send the eldest son. And what I did is outcast on the sea, like Tom Hanks. So, and following was pirate attack, and eventually we got rescued by the German vessel.
We said it was a 16-foot wooden fishing boat with
285, you just scrammed like this.
200 people in it.
285.
285
Yeah,
people.
we make it on shore in Malaysia, and again, a new life beginning, chapter 1. Most people in New York or tycoon, they say, well, this day they want to do a reality life show. And I started my reality show when I was 15 years age.
In a Malaysian camp.
Yeah, jungle. So every morning we had to climb up the mountain and chopping some woods and find a way to light up the fire so it could stay on all night, all day, so you got fire to burn. Then you got to go to the jungle to get fresh water. Wow. And you got to plant your seed and make a living out of it. And for 6 months. And I said, I don't want to suffer any more longer, because if I wait for the American come to rescue me, it's going to be like 2-3 years lined up. So Canada come to drafting, and I said, I go Canada. So, and the immigration officer showed me the map, say, this is Canada, this is Washington, D.C., and literally these 2 country borders are open. You can walk to it. I said, wow, hell's bell. I go to Canada, I walk to the United States, and I claim my American, I want my starter back. That's only a dream. And I end up in Vancouver, Canada. And there was a couple looking to adoption. They want to adopt a little young man, be a big brother for a sister and brother. So somehow God's plan, God's call, they don't know who I am, neither I know who they are. They picked me up at the airport, and I saw 2 handsome couple. And I didn't know they're Irish. So they try to introduce themselves, and I hardly speak any English. So once I get to their home, he said, I'm all shook up. Only you? What is it? And later on, it took me some time to find out that was Elvis Presley, and he tried to be like impersonate. So, and then later on, I got a story from George. I said, no, I cannot call you dad and mom. It's kind of weird. You're not my mom, and you're not my dad, so I just call you by name. So they're okay with that. And later on, I realized they are Irish Canadian. So I said, okay, I'm half Irish. So my mother is Hungarian descent. So I often said to her, or she may remind me, Dan, you're hungry, you're hungry. I said, Irene, I'm not hungry. So she said, you are hungry. So that's how I blend into the Canadian family. And I have a brother, Kenny, and a sister, Karen.
So by this time, you're about 19 years old?
19 years old.
And you've lived five lives by this point of different adversity and challenges. What did you learn through those early years, through those 19 years that have stayed with you throughout the rest of your life?
Yeah, I grew up in a war zone. You don't have much choices. So at age 15, I was vending on the street. Well, often you see that happen in India, in undeveloped country. And my advantage, I wear student clothes. If the communist police catching me running on the street and selling sandal shoes, they say, okay, they won't confiscate me, and they will release me, said, go back to learn, go back to school. So the first year, 15 years old, sell sandal and shoe. No, I didn't like it, because you have to put in your people, what size you are. Actually, my daughter doing that, selling shoes. And then second year, I decided to sell China wear. But what's liability? You break them and then you pay for it. So no, I quit. So third year, I became 17. I said, okay, I'm going to sell cupcake. My mother makes some muffin and butter cake. Hey, you know what? We sell some cake and with some muffin, some seeds and some cashew nuts and peanuts. We make a living. So after that, I said, hey, I'm going to enterprise myself into the food business. So when I get to Canada, again, I don't know what happened, and my Canadian parents, they have a granola baking factory, and I'm the third employee, or first employee, husband and wife,
And
so
you.
me. So hardship. The husband driving taxi at night, the wife delivery, and I'm the janitor, baker boy, doing everything at work while they were doing their works. So went through hardship, and slowly I said to George and Irene, this is not going to work out. We cannot work like slaves. So I said, why don't we start selling sliced almond and selling raisins, selling the ingredient we use in the cereal.
So instead of just the granola, sell the ingredient business.
And it works.
And it works.
It works. Within the 2-3 years, number 5 employee, number 10, and by the time we know it, Joyce said, then I'm 55, I think I'm going to call for early retirement. Sold the business.
So you learned from a very early age, basically being a street vendor in Saigon, to then seeing an opportunity with your adopted family's business, and starting to run with that. And now we can sort of transition, I think. So those early years of figuring out you could sell ingredients in addition to the granola, and then sort of what happened?
Well, after that, after they sold the business, I have to start on my own business. And they actually encouraged me. Say, well, Dan, you have a future ahead of you, and you're going to do much better than us. I said, how? I'm scared. I'm 30 years old. But somehow George encouraged me. He said, well, Dan, you're going to do good. And I start my business, and he come by. He said, well, take me to see how you're going to do your business. I said, okay, I'll just call myself Dandy Pack. He said, wow, great name. Handy Dandy. I said, oh, is it what it is? So then we started from a small business, wholesale, and I started for retail first because I don't have any money. So George was coming to visit me. He said, Dan, I shall not let you play hockey. I said, what is it? Because when you hit a corner, you open up a grocery store. So because Canadian, they like to play hockey and call icing. So the Chinese out there in Vancouver or in Toronto, they all open corner grocery store. So George had the first sight, I will open a corner store, which I did. And I make my first bundle of money and raise a small family. And I said, this is not enough for me. So I went back to wholesale business, manufacturing business. And a few years later, the economy in Canada, with the population so little, I said, well, where can I expand my wings? So like George said, well, when he was young, he's from Toronto and he go west. And from west, he want to go south. The Canada geese, always has south.
The Canadian geese always going south.
Yeah. So when George tried his south, he landed in Vancouver with a broken Cadillac and no more cash. So he parked himself in a Stanley Park and sell recycle for living. And his dream of Hollywood faded. Otherwise, he will be the 007 instead of Sean Connery. So I have my own American dream. So I said, there, George, let's head south. But somehow I start my journey every year coming down to the valley. And I didn't make to Hollywood neither. I do met Steven Spielberg in the early day when he was filming E.T. And they introduced me to Spielberg. He said, well, your investment is $1 million to make the E.T. And he would only take 10 members. And I'm Chinese, you're out. But actually, the return was 1-to-1. So after that, I said, well, I keep traveling in the valley. And somehow I landed in Fresno with 100-degree heat.
Just like Hollywood.
So it became a commitment in Fresno to do almonds. I don't know, it wasn't enough. How can we go to the next level? So my daughter said, Dad, my school tell me, we gotta go to Asia, China. So I said, okay, that's a giant step.
And this picture's of you in China, correct?
That's the first trip to China, back to the homeland to visit my uncle. And that was me in my early 20s, I think. Yeah. So we went to China. China wasn't open back then. And I said, well, opportunity come in 10 years. And in the past 15 years, we see China rise. China become one of the global demand market. And India and China, these two nations add together, they actually can eat up half of the world with the population. So we saw China is the potential growth. And that's how and my father said, well, we could not invest in China because we're small business. So we diversify ourselves, we return to Vietnam. Because when we visit Vietnam 1991 or 1995, George said, cashew, black pepper. He said, then you're going to come to Vietnam to do cashew. And I said, George, you know how difficult it is for me to get out of Vietnam, and now you want me to return to Vietnam. You're just, giving me back to the communists. But the communists said to me, we change. If you can forgive us, and if you come back to invest in Vietnam, we give you a red carpet. We make the road for you to return. And we will welcome as a Chinese. So 1995, I packed up. I said, okay, we're going to start a small factory in Vietnam, see what happened after that. And George was giving me big support behind this.
So he played a mentor to you for a while.
He was my mentor for my life.
And I was saying to Dan that believe it or not, my first job out of college was in the nut business in New York City, and I imported cashews. And at that time, Vietnam wasn't even on the horizon in terms of a cashew country. Now, all these years later, they're the largest processor in the world and maybe the largest grower, right up there with other countries in terms of growing. So this huge transformation, and you sort of saw that opportunity at a time when that country was really establishing their plantations and their processing facilities. And why don't you take us to what you now have in Vietnam in terms of the new factory you built, and a little bit about the employee approach to employee management that you've taken there?
Well, grew up in North America, so I bring a Canadian culture, adopt with the U.S. Culture as well, into Vietnam and try to changing them. So we built 5-star factory in Vietnam, and our factory is so big in Vietnam is we're building a mega factory, 400,000 square feet. So
that's the one on the right-hand side.
Yeah, this is big, and we employ a few thousand to cracking cashews, but eventually we went to automation. And during the pandemic, I must tell you this to share everyone the pandemic thing. I was able to convince my 500 employees. I said, I'm going to lock you guys down, and you will stay in a facility. I'm not going to let you go home. I cannot do that in USA, or nor in Canada. But my factory, it came with dormitory, swimming pool, gym room, salon, canteen.
I want to work there.
It's just like a Norwegian line without a sea. So people actually can jogging. But I tied them down for 4.5 months until I released them in 1st of November when I returned. And this is how we sustain, and this is how we satisfy the customer worldwide, globally, and I have to convince the story to my 500 workers. I said, you're saving life. It's not because I locked you down. And they know when I lock them in the factory, it's much safer than they going home because the disease was spread and there was 25,000 dead in Vietnam. So luckily, I'm the only one do that, and I'm the only factory in Vietnam have facilitated. And the American government called me up, said, Dan, we give you the applause, and I won the award last week by doing the right thing in Vietnam.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
So in the way I'm doing business is I try to blend the culture and let our staff able to learn the American culture, the Western culture, the Canadian culture. This is how we expand our business. Like we'll sponsor a student from Vietnam, give them scholarship going to university in Canada, in the United States, and send them up to Mexico to learn Espanol, so they can contribute back to their own country. So we don't just go in Vietnam and using the cheap labor. And we're putting a lot of technology into Vietnam.
And investing in the people.
Investing in people, correct.
That's very admirable. So speaking of Asia, which is very important to this industry, obviously, let's talk about the future a little bit. As you look at China, but also the other Asian countries in that region, and again, Vietnam, 100 million people, growing middle class, go-go type of...
It is.
And very friendly to Americans and very worldly, really.
They love American for sure.
What do you see in the next sort of 5, 10, 15 years in terms of the nut business, and especially California nuts in that region?
Well, 100 million population, 45% are below 40 years old. Mm-hmm. And my plan is continue promote nuts. In Asia, besides, I like the story in India, because like Ranjit knows, the kids will get 10 almonds before they do an exam.
Go to school.
Yeah, go to school. Right. So brain power. Yeah. And I like to adopt the story and go to spread it out in China, in Japan, or in Vietnam. So we want to continue promote California almonds and dry fruit and other like Canadian blueberry, cranberry in Vietnam and also Asian region. Our mandate is to make almond milk, almond butter, and what we want to do is give the child, the student, have a chance to taste almond milk and have a chance to taste the almond butter, American food, and let them spend the money for our product in the future.
So you see, despite the culinary differences, obviously, with Western world and Asia, that a lot of our almond flour, almond butter, almond snacks, et cetera, once the consumer knows them, likes, tries them, that
They will welcome.
I think they could take off.
They will take off. As far as China go, and because that market is huge, and Japan is huge, and mind you, those consumers are different than the consumer in North America. I mean, look at China, they have more Rolls Royce, more Bentley, more Lamborghini. They have to buy the best. So our almonds have to be perfect for them. Our cashew got to be perfect, our mix not going to be perfect. Otherwise, you're going to pay 10 times compensation to them, penalty.
Right.
So,
I said to Dan that on my first trip to China ever, about 18 years ago, I checked into this 5-star hotel, and at the lobby level, there was the Rolls-Royce dealership and the Ferrari dealership. And I said, am I really in China?
yes.
And so it is a market that's evolved with a huge middle class and obviously high quality expectations.
Yes, it is.
So speaking of cars, you have a relationship with Mr. Leno.
Oh, Jay Leno. I love this guy. In my youth, I was watching Johnny Carson every night, and then later on Letterman, and then after that was Jay Leno. And I heard the interview about Leno, and I liked the story. Because he said, during the interview with Dr. Phil asked him, how you started your career? He said, I stood outside NBC studio in New York City for 5 hours for audition. And 5-hour line, he said, every time there's one man giveaway,
They came out of the line.
yeah, and then he said, that's one step advance for me. And the more men leave the line, the more advance he can take. And Jay Leno said, every man doesn't have the funny chin. I'm afraid I'm going to lose it. But when his turn, he said, I only need the 2-minute audition. And the director asked him, when can you start? He said, tomorrow. I can start now, he said. And then he said, the director asked him, I haven't tell you how much I'm going to offer you. He said, no, I'm not going to worry. The money will come. So inspired what Jay Leno said, I said, wow, this is common sense. We don't get that this day. He inspired me. So every time I get to hire somebody, I remember my father once upon a time he told me, he said, Dan, only hire those people tell you, I pack my lunch and I'm ready to work. But I said, George, I don't get it this day. So Jay is something I admire. You know, he started with nothing and he become a big celebrity.
Yeah. So as your business grew and became multinational in its reach and obviously diversified, you also started to develop your philanthropy and giving back to many parts of the world and different organizations, and wanted to share your success with others in terms of being able to help them. So could you talk a little bit about your programs in Vietnam and also in Canada?
Well, when we got back to Vietnam in 1992 with my Canadian father, we saw kids are begging on the street, and we said, well, this is not the way to give money away, so we have them lined up. So later on, we contact the Catholic Church. My mother, Irene, is also a very religious person. So she also, Dan, are you helping? Are you helping? So I said, okay, Irene, I will do it. So I brought Irene to Vietnam, and then we got involved with the nuns and the Catholic Church. And we're picking up kids on the street. So we're picking up 250 boys, deaf and mute, and 250 girls, and put them in a shelter, and we give them food, and later on we taught them how to use their hand, because, yeah. So, and then skill them, and we provide training. So the girl do the sewing, and the boy do the carpentry, and then once they make the product, they're going to go out to sell it, so they can make a living. So this is the way we doing charity. And another group we do is we're picking up orphan on the street from hospital. You'll be surprised. So many young parents, they give birth and they abandoned the child in the hospital. So lately we count up, we did 94 collection. And you know what, I don't have time. So it's all my sister, Reverend Mother, and the nuns, they run the center for us. Yeah. And we just the one give them financial support.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I know also with the exit from Afghanistan, you've been active in trying to help those refugees as well.
Well, when we look at Afghanistan, and I said, wow, flashback, that was like Vietnam, very much like Vietnam. So there would be thousands of people get killed and tortured before they get forgiven. So I said, well, we got to do something. So I called up all my business associates, and I said, can you contribute? So actually, I have many, like peanut supplier, cashew supplier, almond supplier. They all chip in $1,000, $2,000, and I was able to collect $100,000. And we set aside the $100,000. We told the embassy, we're ready to send it off to Pakistan, the refugee camp, so we can buy food, or maybe we can even sponsor a family come to the United States or go to Canada so they can settle a new life. And this is what we can do within my
needs.
My needs, yeah.
That's great. Yeah. So before we go to a quick question and answer opportunity here, if any of you have any questions for Dan, just is there something else you'd like to say to the California almond industry today?
Well, California almonds have these ups and downs, and as a businessman, we want to see the stable market, and we want to see more promotion in Asia. And Canada always #1 buyer for almonds, but don't forget Vietnam may be small, Singapore may be small, and we need a lot more promotion out there. And let people, by the way, I want to make face masks out of almond. I try it, it worked.
Out of shells?
Blanch almond. Well,
Blanch
we
almond.
make the almond milk, and you get the residue, and you make the face mask with
Okay.
that. Yeah, I try it, it worked. Keep you 10 years younger. Lady.
Brian, the glow.
Yes. If you have any question, ask me. If you want to go to visit Vietnam after pandemic, I will be delighted to take you to visit Vietnam.
Yeah, it'd be great. I really encourage everybody to try and do that. So we'd like just to take a few minutes here. If you have any questions for Dan, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer. We could put him on the spot and ask him to tell a joke. Anybody? Okay, Holly King. If you want to just say it, I'll repeat it.
I just wanted. Is it on?
Yeah.
Yes.
I just wanted to say that in the 90s, I had the opportunity to go to Vietnam, and the people were amazing.
Yes.
I grew up when the Vietnam War was going on, and I thought of Vietnam as a war. And when I got there, I realized it's a country of really beautiful people. And I hope to go back someday because they were making that transition from the war. And I was really lucky to be there. You have a beautiful country and beautiful people there.
Thank you.
So that's not a question. I just love your country.
Thank you.
Thanks, Holly.
Thank you, Holly.
Anybody else? Oh, we got one here.
Hey, Dan, I was wondering your philosophy, your family, and you, in dealing with the foods that are really good, healthy for you, like almonds.
Yes. In my family, I brought up in an Irish family, and we drink lots of milk and potato, steak, pasta.
Cabbage.
Cabbage roll. And you know what? I got caught up. I caught up with eczema. I didn't even notice. My mother, Irene, been taking me to see so many doctors. I have no idea what I got. And actually, I passed on the eczema to my son, severe eczema. Then it was a wake-up call. And back then, in the 70s and 80s, you don't know what's eczema. The word doesn't exist. So after that, I learned the hardcore. I said, oh, whatever I did, as my son paying for it. and I have to discipline myself. And for the last 20 years, I remain 65 kilo, which is a little light. And I've been eating healthy. And I'm the ambassador, not just for cashew, also almonds, blueberry, cranberries. And I keep telling people, eat nuts, are good for you. And I'm the ambassador for dry fruit and nuts and cereal. And I will eat a bowl of cereal every morning. And my employees, they probably eat a bowl of noodle instead. And I brought up in the family with healthy food, and I maintain that. And I'm going around the world, and I promote, especially in Japan, everybody in Japan love to buy almonds from me.
So Emily, I think Dan could be our next almond guy, don't you?
Give me a job.
I don't know if he has or not. We'll show it to him. Anybody else?
Dinesh.
Everybody looks at China as a great market. How do you see Vietnam per capita consumption? Where do you see that going?
So the question was, everybody sees China as this great market, but what about Vietnam and per capita consumption growth and the opportunity there?
Well, when we look at China 20 years ago, I told my daughter, don't be rushed. Because Chinese back then, they were making like $400 a month. When the Chinese are making $2,000, $3,000 a month, it's the time for us to enter to China market. And we did the right thing. And in Vietnam now, there are only 2% of people making about $3,000 a month. So the consumption of expensive nuts is very small. But don't give up. That number is coming. Because now you and my employees, they're making $1,000 a month. So once they have $1,000, they spend the money. And you know what? First thing come to the table is food, and American food. So that almond consumption is going to be higher than cashew, because they don't think cashew is luxury for them. But almonds, pistachio, walnuts will sell more than cashew in Vietnam. 100 million population, we don't need that 100 million population. We don't need 10% of that population. And that will outsell the quantity compared to Canada. Be patient.
Christine?
Hi. In the United States and abroad in Europe, a lot of our consumers are really concerned about how we grow our almonds. So how much is thought about that in Asian populations or consumers?
Consumer in Asia, they know America have the vast land to grow fruit. And whatever they grow over here is give them the mentality is safe. Whatever grow in their hometown is not safe. That is the advantage. So when we enter China with a Canadian symbol and American symbol, you got special welcome. They don't really look at how we grow the almonds, but they know the product is come from United States or Canada. It must be safe because we have all this guidance, regulatory. Thank you.
And people obey the law most of the time.
That's right.
Great. Well, I think maybe we can close it out here.
Thank you very much.
But Dan, it's been an honor, and I feel like I've made a new friend.
Yes,
and I'd love to visit you in Canada, and when we can get back into Asia to come to visit your facility and swim in that pool.
Yes,
I want to go to the salon. Yeah.
Salon, massage.
But let's have a huge round of applause for Dan.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So
Yes?
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sitting in the front table here. If you have any questions, just come to
Feel free
me.
to come up. I conveniently left my notes for what I'm supposed to say now on the table, so I'm going to just ad-lib very quickly. But thanks again to Farm Credit for sponsoring this lunch today. If you're going to the gala or want to tonight, there are tickets still available, with Tyler Rich being our entertainer right here. And for those of you who aren't coming tonight, I just want to say thanks a lot. It's been great to see you. Wish you well, safe travels, and happy holidays. So enjoy the afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.